I appreciate you tuning in for another brand new review. Don't forget, every Wednesday night at 8:30 p.m. Mountain Standard Time, I'm having a new interview, a new opinion piece, or some horror news for you to check out. So what are we talking about here tonight? Folks, we are getting back into it here. We only have a couple of these ones left. So tonight we are talking about the penultimate episode of the Creep Tapes. We're going into the tape for Brandt. Now, over the course of this show, we haven't really gotten a lot of not backstory, but a lot of insight into Peachfuzz's mindset, into what's actually going on behind the mask, behind the mania, behind all these killings that we've been seeing him do over the course of these two films and this TV series. And you know, the movies gave us maybe just a little bit more insight to some of the things that he's been dealing with over the years with his various victims and what might have pushed him a bit into these psychotic tendencies. But we don't ever get really any hard evidence because, as we've seen over the course of all the Creep material, Peachfuzz is a very, very unreliable person. Like, he's very much telling whatever he wants to all of his potential victims just to really set them up, to push them off edge till he can get his rocks off when he eventually kills them a little bit later. And Brandt, especially from what we've seen in this series so far, actually seems to give us maybe a little bit more of a peek behind the mask of what's going on with him. Now, of course, I'm absolutely going to agree with the fact that everything we see in this tape could very well just be a show, like so many of the other stories that we've seen with him so far, that this might just be a performance that he put together for his own viewing pleasure to go back and watch later. Because we know that's what he does. He goes back and watches these tapes and very much enjoys getting to see his kills and his setups and the way that he's able to bamboozle any of these potential victims that show up. And that might be why it's so powerful that this episode is really just Mark Duplass on his own, honestly. We don't get that much time alone with Mark Duplass's character to where he's just bouncing these ideas typically off of himself. You know, the few short bits that we've seen in the show so far, to where he's talking to himself a little bit, really has been like juicy content for sure, but we haven't gotten enough of it. And so coming into Brandt, as the runtime kept going on and on and on, and I kept waiting for somebody else to show up, I then realized that this might be the most personal look that we honestly get at this killer. And the idea that really gets set up in this tape is that not necessarily that Peachfuzz is a split personality, that there's Peachfuzz, the serial killer, and then there's Joseph, Aaron, whatever you want to call him. Not that they are these two separate people or personalities out there, but that it's very possible that Joseph struggles with this murderous side taking control, and that sometimes he wishes that he was the one in the driver's seat. And I feel that it would be a mistake to compare it to something like Split, to where, again, that is about actual split personalities and each of them fighting for their time in the light so they can do whatever they're going to do. Because, again, from what we know about Peachfuzz, that doesn't really seem to back that evidence up. But either way, this episode follows along our killer as he basically states that he wants to be the one that's actually driving this time. He wants to be the one that's carrying out the ruse and the setup and the murder itself. And over the course of this episode, we get to see Peachfuzz, and I'm just gonna call him Joseph to make it easier. That's the name that we used in the first film. But we get to see this interaction between Peachfuzz and Joseph, and even though it's very much staged, that it's this idea that Joseph feels like he might not have any actual self-worth, that Peachfuzz has been the one doing all the work, the one that's connecting with all these potential victims, and what does that really leave for Joseph? And the big reason why I kind of feel that that might be exactly what's going on is actually due to the season finale that I'm going to talk about here shortly as well. Not on this episode, but I'm not going to spoil anything, but there's a lot of stuff going on in the season finale that really makes it seem that Joseph struggled a lot with being the one that got the focus and the attention growing up, and therefore maybe Peachfuzz was created as a way to be more outgoing, more brash, more violent, and again, just have the ability to connect with people a little bit more, no matter how much he's creeping those people out. And seeing the setup of this, of Joseph's trying to fight for control, and he has to actually tame the very erratic Peachfuzz, who very clearly doesn't want to relinquish anything at all, was such a treat. Mark Duplass has and always will be the driving force of this series. Him and Patrick Brice have created this phenomenal character that we can't help, maybe not to root for, but these setups that get more and more elaborate with each different tape or each different movie are always so interesting compared to a lot of the other, serial killers that we're out there with. Because honestly, we don't get that many killers that just get to have like normal conversations with the people that they come in contact with. And so giving us 22 minutes of Mark Duplass acting against himself honestly gives this show a big chance to shine compared to what we've seen so far. And we've had a lot of really, really great episodes, but it's always been Duplass and somebody else. And we know that the whole goal is to get to the end of the episode and figure out, when does the turn actually come? And in this one, there really isn't that. And it's so interesting because while there is very much not the whole 100% truth in this tape, because it's very clearly edited. The fact that Peachfuzz and Joseph actually have, if you want to call it a conversation or two throughout this episode, that's impossible. And as the viewer, there'd be no way that we would be seeing the two of them on screen at the same time. So the fact that we are seeing that makes it very clear that the implication here is that Joseph went back and edited this specific tape to add in the effects for what he wants. He's basically making his movie. And that's something that we've kind of seen his various characters talk about throughout, like, again, the various Creep franchise, that Joseph is a very, very big fan of movies. And so it's not shocking to think that in this particular case, he's actually making his own movie. Like, it's one thing to make a tape for all these various victims that he has, but this is the first time that it feels like Joseph is actually stretching that creative bone of his to really make an actual film for himself. And it's absolutely insane, and it's very, very uncomfortable to see this, because there's numerous times throughout this tape to where he very much breaks character. And then that should be a quick reminder again that Joseph's insane, and that no matter what we're seeing in these tapes, we really have to get back to the fact that this is a dangerous individual who ultimately just has these murderous desires that he's going to consummate no matter what is pressed up against him. This honestly is my favorite episode of the show, and I feel that it kept building up to this because our previous episode, Brad, before this one here, Brad was definitely the breadwinner here of this season so far. They've all been really, really good. I've really enjoyed this show, but moving from Brad to Brandt, it was a very, very weird turn to see the way that he's interacting with this director that he knows of, that he's seen his films before. And again, he's talking about all these films that he really enjoys and what specifically he enjoys about it, to the very next tape being that he's creating his own film. There's something very, very unsettling about that, but that's also the drive of this show. It's really sad that we're only getting 6 episodes here in this first season, but I have to also imagine that we're getting a lot of the ideas that maybe we're making up Creep 3. And that hopefully, if we are able to get a second or even a third season, that maybe we get to come back around and explore some more of these personas that he's created a little bit more, because that is one thing that we haven't actually seen yet. We know that he very commonly takes on the persona of these people that he's killed. That was very much evident in the 2 films. So I do wonder if we do get a second season, if Brice and Duplass choose to do that, if we might dive back into one of these previous characters that we've seen him put in before. Regardless though, this show continues to be fantastic. And yes, even though this is a very much Mark Duplass centered episode, there is still a murder here featured in this one, but I would be remiss to actually mention that, because it's not actually the biggest part of this episode at all. It did get a good laugh out of me though. So go and check this one out here, folks. Y'all know this is available on Shudder right now, and let me know in the comments section, because again, this episode was definitely my favorite of the show thus far. And I'm curious whether or not y'all enjoyed this one more, or if you're a bigger fan of the previous episode, Brad. Let me know that that in the comment section, folks. And of course, make sure to get subscribed to my link tree. It's the best way to stay up to date on all the horror content that I'm gonna be dropping for y'all. And if my subtle hints are not giving you an idea of what's coming up, folks, on January 13th, it is the 30th anniversary of what I feel is the best horror film of all time, Tales from the Crypt, Demon Knight. And starting next week, I'm going to be doing a week-long coverage of the Demon Knight film for all of you. I cannot wait to bring that all to you. You do not want to miss it. I got some treats here for y'all in store. So hit that subscribe button, because on my link tree, you have access to all of my content, everything that I'm dropping for you. You can do that by going to linktr.ee/tscarymovie. If you get subscribed, that's going to give you access to the YouTube page for the video versions of the show, your favorite podcasting platforms for the audio-only versions of the show, to my Letterboxd page for written reviews and movie rankings throughout the year, to my TikTok page for short horror content, including movie news and movie premieres, to my Twitch page for my horror gaming, including The Thing Remastered and Phasmophobia, and to my Fangoria shop page, where you can enjoy a 20% discount off anything in the Fangoria shop. Take advantage of all that, folks. Hit that subscribe button, and I'll be back with some more great reviews for you here. My name is T. We've been talking scary movies. Stay scared.